Snoop Dogg has told the story of Tupac meeting Nas in New York multiple times over the years. And every time he tells it, he puts himself right in the center of the action. According to Snoop's version, Nas ran up on Tupac deep in New York. Tupac got in Nas's face talking tough. And Snoop had to be there to watch it all go down and make sure things stayed calm. It is a dramatic story. It sounds believable. And for years, people repeated it like fact. There is just one problem. Multiple people who were actually there say Snoop was not there at all.
Super peaceful and super chill, right? You know what's crazy about that, bruh? Oz does a rebuttal video where he says Snoop wasn't even there. Also, other Outlaw members who were close to Tupac said that Snoop Dogg was not there. He was never there. So what I'm trying to figure out is, with all the people that was there, what made Snoop Dogg think he was gonna get away with telling a false story? Like, nobody was gonna say that.
Snoop told the story a few times, but he had it wrong a little bit. He had said that Pac stepped to me.
Ooh, but it wasn't like Snoop said.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, man. So Snoop, he didn't see Tupac and Nas interact at all.
I don't remember Snoop being there, definitely.
Nas himself said Snoop was not there. Outlaw members who were literally with Tupac said Snoop was not there. Death Row security members who were present confirmed Snoop was not there. And what actually happened between Tupac and Nas that day? Completely different from Snoop's version.
I don't recall Snoop being there. And the situation didn't go down nothing the way Snoop said it. You know, Pac wasn't cursing out Nas. None of that happened, bro. It was a mutual respect thing. When Pac and Nas met each other, it was nobody talking disrespect from both sides. But Pac and Nas handled it like real gentlemen, real, you know what I mean? Real respectful. It wasn't like Snoop said that Pac was like, to Nas, I do this and do it. It was none of that. And then Pac literally told him, he said, look, I got songs dissing you. When I go back to LA, I'm gonna remove every verse that I mentioned your name in. But Pac couldn't do it because he passed away. So it definitely wasn't the way Snoop said it. Once again, I don't know.
Tupac and Nas met, squashed their beef like men, with mutual respect, with Tupac even promising to remove the diss verses he had recorded against Nas. That is the real story, not Tupac getting in Nas's face while Snoop heroically watched. Not the dramatic showdown Snoop has been describing for years. The real story was two men handling their business respectfully, and Snoop was not even in the room when it happened.
He told the story a few times, but he had it wrong a little bit. He had said that Pac stepped to me.
Ooh, but it wasn't like Snoop said.
Yeah, that's crazy to me, man. So Snoop, he didn't see Tupac and Nas interact at all.
I don't remember Snoop being there, definitely. I don't remember Snoop being there at all.
Multiple witnesses, same conclusion. Snoop was not there. And the story he has been telling for years is fabricated. Now here is where it gets personal. Because Snoop did not just lie about the Nas situation. He went on record and blamed Tupac for decisions that Snoop made himself. The Red Table Talk interview. Jada Pinkett Smith asked Snoop about his history of using degrading language toward women in his music. And Snoop's answer, when you really listen to it, threw Tupac directly under the bus.
Word by word, but there was an interview a long time ago that he did with Jada Pinkett and her mother and their daughter. They had like a podcast show at one particular time. And I remember, you know, Jada said something like, I didn't really like, Snoop, how you was calling the woman out of their names in your raps. And Snoop replied, it's not word by word, but he replied saying something similar like, yeah, I was trying to change and, you know, and not speak bad about women until Pac came to Death Row and like brought me back.
So it's kind of hard to like take those words out of the equation when I got to do shows that people love that song. And even me and Pac got into it because he was like, he wanted me to stay gangster. And I was like, cuz, I got a baby on the way.
Yeah.
I just beat a murder case. I have a lot to live for.
Right.
He had no kids.
So read that carefully. Snoop is sitting across from Jada Pinkett Smith, Tupac's closest friend, and telling her that Tupac is the reason Snoop kept using degrading language toward women. That Pac brought him back to that energy. That if Pac had not come to Death Row, Snoop would have evolved sooner. He is blaming a dead man for his own creative choices in front of that dead man's closest friend. And the reaction to that was immediate.
Yes. So when I start seeing that, I'm like, something is not adding up. Because one, if that's your boy, you know what I mean? And he's dead. Even if you see negative things about him, you should leave that alone. Because he's not even here to defend himself. And he did some other stuff, and so I just always look at it like he would praise him, but then diss him. And that's like the oldest, corniest tactics ever that we used to do in the hood.
Praise him and then diss him. That is the pattern. And it is a pattern that goes back years across multiple interviews and multiple platforms. Now, here is a detail that Snoop has never talked about publicly. A detail that people who were actually there have confirmed. And it tells you everything about where Tupac and Snoop's relationship actually stood in the days before Las Vegas. After the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards, just days before Tupac was shot in Vegas, there was a plane ride back from New York. Tupac was on that plane. Snoop was on that plane. And the tension between them was so severe that death row security had to physically sit between the two men to keep things from exploding.
Including members of the Outlaws, confirmed that on the flight back from the 1996 MTV Video Music Awards just days before Vegas, Pac refused to speak to Snoop, and security sat between them because the tension was so dangerous. Yet, in many of Snoop's modern retellings, he glossed.
Security sat between them because the tension was so dangerous. This is not two friends having a minor disagreement. This is two men who needed physical separation to prevent a confrontation on an airplane, days before one of them would be shot in Las Vegas. And yet, Snoop has spent 30 years telling stories about their unbreakable brotherhood, about how close they were, about how much Pac meant to him. The plane ride tells a different story, a story that the people who were actually on that plane have confirmed.
He glosses over this hostility to paint a picture of unbroken brotherhood, the Nas confrontation story. Snoop has frequently told a dramatic story about Pac and Nas facing off in New York with 100 guys and guns drawn, claiming he had to step in or watch things turn deadly. However, Nas himself, along with several death row bodyguards who were physically present, later came out and stated Snoop's version was heavily fabricated.
Heavily fabricated. That is the word that keeps coming up from multiple independent sources when they describe Snoop's stories about Tupac. Of all the things Snoop has done that people point to as disrespectful toward Tupac, this one might be the most significant, because this one happened while Tupac was still alive, while the East Coast-West Coast beef was at its most dangerous point. After Tupac dropped Hit 'Em Up, the most aggressive diss record in hip-hop history, targeting Biggie, Puff Daddy, and Bad Boy, the entire death row camp was supposed to be unified against the East Coast. Tupac had put everything on the line with that record. His safety, his life. He was in New York just weeks before and already knew people wanted him dead. And into that environment, Snoop went on New York radio with DJ Clue and said he was cool with Biggie and Puff Daddy, that he loved their music.
Right after Pac dropped Hit 'Em Up and went all in on the East Coast, West Coast war, Snoop went on New York radio DJ Clue and stated he was cool with Biggie and Puff, declaring he loved their music. Tupac, who had survived being shot in New York and felt his life was constantly on the line. This wasn't just a difference of opinion, it was an active betrayal of the team. The plane ride cold shoulder, multiple people.
Active betrayal of the team on New York radio, while Tupac was putting his life on the line daily because of the same beef. And this connects directly to what happened on that plane ride back from the VMAs. Because when Snoop went on Hot 97 and said he had no issues with Biggie and Puff, Tupac found out. And that is what created the tension that was so bad that security had to separate them on the flight back to Los Angeles.
They tried to get me to not like Puffy and Biggie while we was in the middle of the Death Row Bad Boy feud. And I made a choice that I had no issues with them. I said I'd do a song. I want to do a song with them niggas. That's how I ended. I said I ain't got no issues with Puffy and Biggie. I want to do a song with them niggas.
Middle of the war.
In New York.
In New York.
On Hot 97.
Why the fuck did you say that?
Because that's how I felt. I respected their music. Their shit sounded good. It felt good.
Why were you the only one?
I wasn't brainwashed.
Middle of the war, on Hot 97. In New York, the same city where Tupac had already been shot once. The same city where death row members had already been shot at while filming a music video. And Snoop goes on radio there and declares peace with the other side. That is not a minor difference of opinion. That is a move that put every death row artist in a more dangerous position while signaling to the other side that Snoop was not really in the fight. After Tupac was shot in Las Vegas and taken to the hospital, he lay there for 6 days before he passed. And in the years since, Snoop has given interviews suggesting he was there, that he went to the hospital, that he had moments with Pac in those final days. People who were actually at that hospital say that is not true.
He was in the hospital.
None of them. And it makes me sick to hear them say that, oh, they were there.
So I go in the room with him, and he laid up. And I just get right on the side of his head and just start talking to him in his ear. Just talking to him.
If Snoop's going around saying he went to the hospital and had a conversation with Pac, that is a flat-out lie. Snoop and Tupac was not on great terms. Every person went to go visit Pac.
Every person who visited Tupac in that hospital, there are pictures, documentation, proof that they were there. Because that is what people do when someone they love is dying. They want evidence that they were present. No such pictures exist of Snoop at that hospital. And people who were there, people who sat with Tupac in his final days, have said clearly that Snoop was not there. And the reason they say Snoop was not there goes back to everything we have already covered. By the time Tupac was shot in Vegas, he and Snoop were not on good terms. The plane ride happened. The DJ Clue interview happened. The tension was real and documented. Snoop showing up at that hospital would have been complicated, so he did not go. And now, decades later, he tells stories suggesting he was there. Here is what makes all of this hit differently than regular hip-hop beef or regular historical disagreements about what happened in the 90s. After Tupac died, Snoop positioned himself as one of the primary keepers of Tupac's legacy. He has used Tupac's name, Tupac's likeness, and Tupac's story to boost his own brand repeatedly over the past 30 years. Most recently, Snoop has been involved in projects that use Tupac's AI vocals and imagery. He has leaned into his death row ownership to associate himself with everything Pac built. He presents himself publicly as someone who loved and protected Tupac.
Using Pac's likeness, AI vocals, and imagery to boost his own commercial ventures and Death Row rebrand decades later, it feels like a calculated move, maximizing the legendary status of a fallen friend for marketing, while erasing the reality that they were actively at odds when it mattered most. Seeing someone play both sides back then, only to profit off the legacy now.
Actively at odds when it mattered most. That is the line. While Tupac was alive and in danger, Snoop was on New York radio declaring peace with the other side. While Tupac was in the hospital dying, Snoop was not there. While Tupac's family and friends were grieving, Snoop was positioning himself as the heir to the narrative. And now, 30 years later, Snoop is using Tupac's voice, his image, and his legacy to sell products and rebrand Death Row Records.
Very least, it's clear he spent the last 30 years rewriting history to protect his own brand. When you really strip away the corporate, mainstream Uncle Snoop image he's built with cooking shows, Olympics hosting, and commercial deals, and you look at the documented timeline of 1996, it becomes incredibly hard to reconcile the history with the stories he tells today. For a lot of foundational West Coast fans, that's where the real sense of betrayal sits.
Playing both sides. That is the phrase that cuts to the heart of everything. While Pac was alive, Snoop was playing both sides of the East Coast, West Coast beef. After Pac died, Snoop started playing both sides of the legacy, praising him publicly while telling stories that consistently undermined him privately. And then there is the Nate Dogg situation. Because this is not just about Tupac. This is about a pattern. Nate Dogg died in 2011. He left behind a significant catalog, a #1 hit with 50 Cent. 3 top 10 records, 18 songs on the top 100, a catalog that should have been feeding his family for decades after his death. But according to Nate Dogg's family, including his son and his mother, they have been having serious problems accessing and profiting from that catalog. And the name that keeps coming up in their account of what happened to those masters is Snoop Dogg.
Supposedly Snoop, got the okay from my grandma to go to her house and get my pop's masters. She, pretty much showed him where the masters were, however this occurred, and he left with the master.
Nate Dogg's grandmother, an elderly woman who trusted Snoop as a fellow West Coast legend and longtime associate of her son, showed him where the masters were. And Snoop left with them.
I don't know. Even during this interview, I don't know if Snoop did it, man. Like my uncle and my grandmama standing by, but I don't know. Me and Snoop still cool.
So, and what Snoop has always told me is, he don't got it and he don't know you, and he would never do something like that. But my thing is, it's like, I at least would want to know, like, you do.
Nate Dogg's own grandmother, confirming that Snoop came to her house and left with the Masters. While Snoop denies having them, Grandmama go to church every Sunday. Grandmama ain't lying on Snoop. That line from the podcast says everything. An elderly church-going woman is not making this up. And the pattern of Snoop allegedly taking things that belong to people who trusted him, whether it is the truth about Tupac's final days or the physical masters of a deceased artist, is something that more and more people are starting to connect. Now here is the layer of this story that most people have not heard. And it is one of the most explosive claims in this entire situation. Suge Knight is in prison. And according to Suge Snoop, Dogg's team has been writing letters to the parole board every single year trying to keep Suge from being released.
Suge Knight was like, yo, Snoop Dogg told, like, pull it up on YouTube. But Suge Knight says Snoop Dogg tell. And watch, right? So he's like, yo, his mom, Snoop Dogg's mom or Snoop Dogg's team writes letters to the warden every year saying that Suge shouldn't be released. This is coming from Suge Knight's mouth, bro. Like, pull it up. Put Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg rap.
Alright, I'll put it up.
And this is coming from...
Now, Suge Knight is not the most reliable narrator. He has his own history of violence and manipulation. But this specific claim that Snoop's team has been actively working to keep Suge locked up connects to a broader pattern that people close to death row have been pointing at for years.
Because Suge Knight in prison about Snoop Dogg, a rat is the lowest you can go.
Person who owned death row, person who people feared, person who used to hang niggas off a balcony in LA, right? Saying that Snoop Dogg's a rat, but everybody, because it's their favorite uncle, it's their favorite OG, it's like, nah, we don't want to believe it. No, don't. It's like telling a little kid that Santa Claus not real, right? They go like this. No, it's real.
The man who people genuinely feared in the 90s, the man who ran death row with an iron fist, sitting in prison calling Snoop Dogg a rat. People can dismiss that because of who Suge is, but when you combine it with the Nate Dogg Masters situation, the lies about the Nas confrontation, the Red Table Talk blame shifting, the DJ Clue interview betrayal, and the hospital visit that never happened, a picture starts to emerge that is very different from the Uncle Snoop story. Snoop Dogg built one of the most beloved public personas in entertainment history. Cooking shows, Olympic ceremonies, corporate deals. Grandmas love him. Kids love him. He is America's favorite uncle and hip-hop's most recognizable living legend. But behind that persona, the receipts tell a different story. A story about a man who went on New York radio and declared peace while his label mate was putting his life on the line. A man who was not at the hospital when Tupac was dying, but has spent decades implying he was. A man whose version of every story about Tupac has been directly contradicted by multiple people who were actually present. A man accused of taking masters from a deceased artist's elderly grandmother. None of this is comfortable to sit with if you grew up loving Snoop. But the people who were actually there, who ran with Tupac, who were in those rooms, who were on that plane ride, have been trying to tell this story for years. And the receipts are damning. Drop in the comments. Does this change how you see Snoop Dogg? Or do you think people are being too hard on him? And what do you think really happened between him and Tupac in those final weeks before Vegas? Like and subscribe, because this rabbit hole goes even deeper.